It's Father Aaron at St. Albans, and this is day one of the Advent Gospel Challenge. The Advent Gospel Challenge is essentially the challenge to read the Gospel according to St. Luke in the season of Advent. Luke is, in the order it's found in Scripture, the third of the Gospel accounts, and it is 24 chapters long. And it just so happens that this year, Advent begins today, December 1st, and is 24 days long, therefore. The first of Advent, first Sunday of Advent, today through the 24th. Christmas Eve is actually also an Advent day. So we have 24 days, we have 24 chapters. That seems perfect to me to read one chapter a day. Now, I'm not going to read it here on screen. This is supposed to be about you reading it. Although if you find an audiobook version, go right ahead. Speaking of version, you can read any sort. This is a sort of fancy study Bible. This is one with your bare footnotes and it's all raggedy and everything else. It can be a King James, it can be a NRSV, an RSV, an NIV, an ABC, a PDQ, whatever you want, any version. The point here is to engage with and read Scripture. So you need two things to do this. A Bible, and as I say, whatever version, as long as it has the Gospel according to St. Luke, and time. The other thing you need is time. You don't need a lot of it. We're only reading one chapter per day, not, a whole book of the Bible, and the chapters are not that long. This one, well, let's just look at what today's is. I'm not going to read it here, but I just want to give a little overview. It's going to begin with an introduction. It's going to begin with an introduction and a dedication to someone named Theophilus. That may be a name, but likely it's a description. Theophilus means a lover of God. Philos is love. If you're an Anglophile, you're someone who loves British things, right, and English things. So Theo is God. So if you know anyone named Theodore, it's also a lover of God, one who's devoted to God. But Theophilus, a lover of God. So it could simply be anyone who's reading this who wants to know God better, someone whose heart is for God. Theophilus. All right. Theophilus is who it's dedicated to. A short introduction, all right, and then into the text, into the narrative. First, we hear the birth of John the Baptist being foretold. Remember, Zechariah goes into the temple and he sees the angel, and because he doubts that this could happen, he's struck mute until the child is born. Okay, so we have that. Then we have the birth of Jesus foretold. This is extremely famous. We're talking about, the angel Gabriel coming to Mary, right? And Mary responds by going immediately to visit her cousin Elizabeth, because the angel says Elizabeth also, this is John the Baptist's mother, Elizabeth is expecting. She runs to see Elizabeth immediately. Upon hearing the news of Christ, she acts immediately. So we have one person who hears the news and doubts, and he can no longer speak because God is not going to have, a word of doubt cast against this prophecy. So you will not speak until you have proof in your arms that what I'm saying happens. But then here comes Mary. She gets the news, and her first reaction is to act immediately and to go to her cousin, who is an old lady at this point and must be having quite a time. Pregnant with a child, good heavens, imagine. So she goes to her immediately. And when she arrives, of course, famously, that the child in Elizabeth's womb leaps for joy at the approach of Mary, right? And she tells her this, and Mary responds with a beautiful song, the Magnificat, right? My soul doth magnify the Lord, or my soul magnifies the Lord. My soul amplifies for the world what God has done. Again, we see Mary's deep devotion in her response. She acts, she does something active and good and charitable in response to the news of Christ. And then she sings and she magnifies for the world what has happened in her life. She sings to the world what has happened. Well, now John the Baptist is then born, and at his birth, he is named John, at the insistence of the father, who heard from the angel, name him John. And they're like, nobody in your family's named John. Why would we do that? And he writes it on a tablet. Name him John. His name is John. And once that name is given, boom, he can speak. And he also responds with a song. Zechariah had doubt, but he wasn't a bad person. He was a priest of the temple, the high priest of the temple. He was up there. um, his song of response is a beautiful, beautiful song. Now, the Magnificat would go on in church history to be used as a song during evening prayer, as a canticle. Canticle's a song, would be chanted during evening prayer. Zechariah's song gets chanted during morning prayer. It gets chanted during morning prayer, and it's beautiful. If you've attended an Anglican morning prayer, you know it. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, for he has looked with favor upon his people. You know that canticle from morning prayer. So he responds with this great song, right? And then we're told the child grew and became strong in spirit and was in the wilderness until the day that he was revealed publicly. So what we have in this first chapter is we are setting up, we are introducing the strain of characters, we're introducing the cast of characters, but we're introducing them as people of faith who respond to God's actions in the world. God acts first. We don't have the initiative. But when God acts, people of faith respond. They respond with kind and charitable action, going to Elizabeth to help her in these months of pregnancy, and responding in prayer and song and praise, right? So that's the beginning of the gospel. That's the first chapter. Sit yourself down and read it if you haven't already. Read that first chapter and come back tomorrow and we'll talk about chapter 2. God bless you. Now, how do I turn this thing off? That's it.